Hey guys, welcome to Prepping It. If you're on your phone or on one of your devices watching this video, it means that there's still a small amount of time. Here in Alaska, I'm standing in the woods next to my house. But here in Alaska and even all over the United States and all over the world, we're so reliant on technology. In almost every industry, in almost every profession, you need technology to make it work. And by technology, I'm specifically referring to the internet. For instance, I even work up on the North Slope of Alaska, on the oil fields up there. In addition to doing volunteer firefighting, I also work in a warehouse. And even our warehouse systems, they all have to hook up to the internet. And if we lose internet connection, which we have a few times due to various causes, most of the time is weather, we can't do anything. We can't issue out material, we can't check in new material. And so it's really opened my eyes to how vulnerable we are, really. But people like to say that it'll never happen to us, the internet going down and cell phones not working, that only happens in poorer second and third world countries or in times of war. Just a few days ago, in fact, all of AT&T, one of the largest cell phone providers here in the United States, went down nationwide. From New York and California, even up here to Alaska, if you had a phone on AT&T, you couldn't use cellular data, you couldn't text, you couldn't call. And even that left us on the North Slope without signal for a while, because our tower up there is ran by AT&T, I believe. Obviously, we still had normal internet, so we could still communicate and talk and get what we needed done. But it really opened my eyes to how vulnerable the system we really have and the consequences of a large-scale internet shutdown. I think in the first hours, you'd see people not necessarily panicking, but mainly just, exasperation. People's videos failing to load, people's businesses kind of grinding to a halt for a while. Your online payments, all your money that you have saved up in your bank somewhere is no longer accessible because it's just ones and zeros. But I think after a few hours, people would really start to wake up and realize that there's something much worse going on, and something potentially far more disastrous. When I'm talking every industry being affected, I mean literally every industry. Even farming, most of our industrial farms here in America, we have massive combines and tractors and all sorts of different farm equipment that runs off GPS and is hooked up to a cellular data network, because a lot of the farm equipment is now autonomous in the big farms in the lower 48 states of America and things like that. You have these massive fields growing wheat, corn, or whatever, and everything is automatic, very little human interaction, meaning that all that would grind to a halt. So pretty soon we'd see chaos, in my opinion, similar to what happened at the beginning of the COVID crisis. We'd have massive runs on stores, and honestly, I think there'd be a lot of looting too, because people's cards won't work anymore. Your online payments, PayPal, Bitcoin, whatever you have, you can't access it. You can't trade it. So this leaves us in an interesting dilemma, especially for me as a young man trying to make my way in this modern world of 2024. Whereas I see that online business is by far the quickest, and I hate using the word, but also one of the simpler or easier ways to obtain financial independence and financial freedom, which is something that I strive for and that I want to bring to my future family someday. And so I feel in a bit of a pickle, if you follow me, because even right now I make decent money working on the North Slope of Alaska on the oil fields. But even though I make around, I think I make more than a third of everybody in the United States salary-wise, but that's still not enough to afford a house. You know, it's barely enough. So I could get a house, but nothing else, essentially. But I see that there's definitely a gold rush and a massive bounty of opportunity on the internet through all sorts of different business models, and I'm trying to pursue both, if that makes sense. And that's something that I really urge you guys who are watching. And I know a lot of guys, even in self-improvement in the digital online space, will disagree with me, but I say, don't be afraid to go get your hands dirty and go do a physical job. At least know what that's like. Because mark my words, if something happens, the skills that you've developed being an online entrepreneur carry over somewhat, as in work ethic and things of that sort. But I want you to ask yourself this truly, is that if something were to happen, some kind of crisis, who's going to be the more valuable man in society? The man who had, keyword had, 1 million, 2 million subscribers on YouTube and built a channel talking about self-improvement, talking about how to improve yourself, but he can't really do anything else, Sure, he reads, he goes to the gym, he studies, great, and by no means am I saying don't do those things, because I think that's really important in today's society and becoming a well-educated, masculine young man. But even the guy who's maybe not so involved on self-improvement, but has been framing houses and working a construction job, and knows how to work with his hands and build things, he's going to be in much higher demand than even the person who has a better physique than him and potentially even better book knowledge than him. If he's been around the block, he's well connected in his own community, has friends, goes to a strong church, he's going to be okay. I'm not sure about everywhere else in the world, but up here in Alaska, we're still very free. As in, you can still hunt, you can still fish. And in the summer, there's so much food available. Just miles and miles to the mountains over there. In the summer, come the right seasons, the right conditions, there's just miles of blueberry and blackberry bushes. And people go and they have big old 5-gallon buckets that they just fill up with blueberries and raspberries and all sorts of other things, like fiddlehead ferns are so delicious, and they just grow everywhere. So knowing how to have practical skills, I think, is going to serve a lot of you very well. But again, it's not nearly as efficient, right? As an experienced tradesman, or I'm not saying I'm an experienced tradesman, but as a beginning tradesman, you can probably be making $50 or $60 an hour, depending on whatever trade you choose. But online, doing self-improvement coaching, I know guys who are charging $200 an hour and have quite a few clients. So, yeah, us in a pickle as young men. And even if there's older people watching this, in 40s or 50s or whatever age, the world is not how it used to be. And I'm talking even pre-COVID. Right now, there's girls on the internet doing, degenerate things, making more money than doctors by a long shot. And I think that's one of the biggest indicators of what's going on in our society and how we've, as a society as a whole, been pushing out the middle class and the strong young men. And instead, we've been told to embrace this blue pill, as it's known in our community, which is essentially being a feminine man, being in touch and able to express your emotions. And I think as young men, it's very important not to bottle up our emotions, but to be able to feel them. But, and this is the key word, but, to be able to harness and control them and not let those emotions govern and rule our lives. Because the most dangerous thing to society, greater than pretty much anything else, minus wars and that, but the actual type of person who's the most dangerous to society is a lazy but ambitious, emotional young man. Especially one without a strong father figure and without a clear purpose in life, meaning that he's got nothing to lose. This is where we get tragedies like school shootings. People try to blame guns and say, no, it's because we have guns and guns are so easy to access. But I'm going to come straight up and tell you that's bullcrap. That's bullcrap. 50 years ago, you could go and buy guns legally at 16. Depending on the state, you could even buy handguns at 16. Maybe 18 in some states. Schools used to have legitimate shooting clubs where they'd go out to ranges and practice shooting clay pigeons and, shooting .22 rifles and things like that. Even my dear old dad tells me about how when he went to school, in the back of his truck in the headache rack, he used to have his shotgun and his hunting rifle, because he and his brother would go duck hunting before school in the mornings. They'd wake up super early and go duck hunting, and if they got anything, then they'd have to, process it pretty quickly, but then they could go to school, or even before church. But yet, we don't see the amount of violence perpetrated there as the violence that we see nowadays. And I think that's because that generation still valued a strong young man in the world. But in today's societies, as a white, more conservative Christian male, I'm being targeted. Just look around at the media. Look around at what they're shouting in the streets. The people who will burn buildings, turn over cars and set them on fire, light stuff on fire. So enough with the fire, but I'm a firefighter, so that hits hard. But these are the kind of people, the ones who are looting, that honestly I think deserve a little bit of caution around. Not necessarily to be full on afraid of them, but we should be very cautious around these kinds of people on both sides when it comes to political extremes. Because these people are willing to go out in the streets and do what they've done during the protests of, what was it, like 2020 and 2021 in New York and Seattle, Chicago, over the death of one man, whatever your standpoint on it, imagine what's going to happen if there's no food or if the internet shuts down. We thought the BLM and Antifa riots were bad. I hate to sound conspiratorial, but I feel it's just the beginning. And I know I'm not alone in this. Especially after COVID, everything feels different somehow. There's a smell in the air, and I think the winds of change are blowing. However, as some of the financial elites and bankers like to say, never let a good, never let a good tragedy or a good, there we go. Never let a good crisis go to waste. And while that is a little bit bleak, I, for one, am hopeful. I believe that there's going to be some tougher years ahead, but those of us who prepare and persevere and build strong communities and really knit ourselves together, it will enter into a time of prosperity that we've never even seen before. So, if you've watched this far, you can tell that we're probably on a pretty similar wavelength in our beliefs. And I don't know, I just want to tell you guys that, you know, as a young man, I'm 19. There's a lot to prepare for, and a lot of unique situations and unique challenges that I don't think our parents and our grandparents faced, because back then the world was much simpler. And I mean, I wasn't old enough to be in those times, but I've heard that from my father, my grandfather. So many good, strong, older men, good mentors. And that back then it was pretty simple, you know? You went to college, which wasn't a stupid amount of money, but you went to college and you got a good degree in engineering, or became a doctor and you went and you got a good, well-paying job and you were set. Or maybe you started your own business, you started a construction company or started, you know, some real estate, you know, buying and selling fourplexes or duplexes and all that, and renting. But now, with inflation through the roof, I'm gonna have to be creative when it comes to making money and when it comes to living life too, because the old ways don't work anymore. Simple as that. How is it that a person can make more money playing video games and coaching somebody how to play video games than a soldier, or you know, than even a university graduate who has to go work at Chipotle or some other, you know, restaurant just to make ends meet? I'm excited to bring this channel and to show you guys, because I don't see YouTube as a full-time job by any means, but I just think it'd be valuable to share my opinions and the things I've learned as a firefighter, working in the trades, and moving up to Alaska all by myself at 19. Not to mention traveling to South America, traveling all over the United States, going on adventures and things. I just want to show you guys that even in turmoil and in the situation that we find ourselves in, that's no excuse to hide under a rock, you know, to build a bunker and to hunker down. There might come a time for that, but on this channel I just want to show you guys who I am, my authentic self, and hopefully give you guys some hope for a younger generation of masculine young men. Because when all the old graybeards and the politicians are gone, probably in the next 10 years, you know, Biden, Trump, even our grandparents, in the next 10 years, that whole generation is going to be gone. Or most of it. Pretty much all of it, I reckon. We're going to be the next working class. We're going to be the next generation of politicians eventually, and the next generation of leaders. Because the old systems and the old ways are failing, and they know it. When I say they, pretty much in whatever context, quick disclaimer, I mean essentially politicians, centralized banking corporations, and the people behind them. That's what I mean by they. Personally, I don't think that there's some secret group like the Illuminati or whatever that controls everything. Otherwise, stuff would be a lot worse than it is now. I believe it's a bunch of independent groups working kind of together, but also in competition with each other to push their own agendas. And that's why we see some organized things, but also apparent chaos. But in my opinion, also, when I say that they, just know it's just the people higher up than you and me, the average Joes. Or I mean, if you're watching this, I don't think you're the average Joe, you know, drinking on your couch, drinking beer, watching the football game, and having your head in the sand. If you'd stayed this far into my rambling, you're probably a more intelligent person than most, and have your eyes wider open. So I think that's enough talking and enough introduction to this part of my channel. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'm really excited to show you guys who I am, and maybe teach you guys a few things along the way, and spread a message of hope to all those out there who think that the end is coming, whether that be Christian end or whatever you believe. But how about the end of life as we know it? I think that's pretty fair, whatever happens. I believe there's hope. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Prepping It.